welcome to the Jack Low audio experience. And today joining me is Amanda. How are you doing, Amanda?
Hi, Jack. Hi, everyone. I'm good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, awesome. I'm doing awesome. So can you run us through what is in your world right now? Probably tell us who are you and what you're about. Yeah.
So my name is Amanda. I'm originally from Switzerland, but I moved to the UAE about 2.5 years ago. And I've been working in the sports and wellness industry for the past 3 years here in the Middle East. And yeah, that's about the brief introduction.
Awesome. Can you run us through like what is it all about the sports thing that you kind of do?
So yes, basically what I do is I manage a gym here in Abu Dhabi, and
Mm.
on the side I also run a lot of sports events, specifically CrossFit, if you know what that is. So I've been doing that for the past couple of years now, and I've also been training with CrossFit for the past 5 years, and that's
Mm.
mostly what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, probably can you tell us what is about this CrossFit thing? Cause I'm not sure as well. Yeah.
Okay, so CrossFit is a type of training that's mixing three different main categories: Olympic weightlifting, gymnastics, and cardio training. So we try to mix different exercises from all three of these sports categories to make it very like a total body workout, very comprehensive movements, and yeah, just to be basically the fittest we can be inside the gym, but also to do stuff outside of the gym.
I see. So, like, what made you? I like to know, like, what made you started all this like gym stuff? Like, where does this all come about? Yeah, run us through from the all the way from the start. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my sports background is dancing. So I was dancing for from about 5 years old until I was 20, and I danced maybe like 20 to 25 hours a week, taking classes and getting better, and then competitively as well. We went to the World Championship a couple of years with my team. And when I started university, then I kind of became lazy and stopped training and
Mm.
started eating more bad food. And yeah, and then I was getting a little bit bored with just going to the gym and being on the treadmill. And I think especially for women, it's really difficult to, the weights can be intimidating when you don't know what you're doing. So I was not really into that. But then I found CrossFit, and when I started that, I got like right away hooked because it's very easy to measure your and track your progress, so you know exactly if you're getting better or not and what you need to work on. So when I started that, I just found it, and then I kind of like got sucked into it and never really looked back.
Awesome. I thank you for sharing the context of like what your life is revolving about. Yeah. So I like to jump into like personal struggles. So
Hmm.
um basically, is there any like sort of like moments like big moments whereby you still can remember that you think that you struggle a lot, and then how can you talk to us about those experiences? Yeah.
Oh, that's a very broad question, actually.
Mm. Like
I
probably towards your
think
gym, yeah. Anything,
um,
yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the more recent example for me is about, I've lived in Switzerland for basically my whole life, from when the time I was born until about 24, 25 years old. And then I always wanted to live abroad. That's something I always knew I wanted for my life, but I never really like made it happen. And then when I got the opportunity to move to the Middle East, I decided to take it, but I think I did not really realize the extent of how changing countries and cultures and being away from your family and your friends, what like how big of a challenge that could be. And so the first maybe 6 months to a year of living here has been like, it was really difficult. um, it's kind of like when you're in a new environment, obviously, you want to leave your country because you want to experience something new, but you keep always comparing to what it is back home and comparing like, oh, this is better back home, this is better where I come from. But you also have to realize that when you leave and you want to go somewhere else, it's because you want something different.
Mm.
So if you keep wanting it to be like it is back home, then maybe you should stay back home. And that's it took me a while to realize that, because I kept getting frustrated and angry at how things were not the way I wanted them to be. But then I ultimately realized that this was a problem with me and not a problem with the environment I was in, and that I had to adapt to the place where I was, and it was not the place had to adapt to what I wanted it to be, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense to me, and it almost feels like from your vibes, I can tell that it's like there is like pretty much a lot of ups and downs in your life here and there. And I like to share with my timeline of how my life is like about, and it's like my father passed away when I was like 12, and like before that, before I was 12 years old, it feels like I was stuck in a delusional framework of my life. That's how I think about it, and that people would like treat me very nice, like treat me as a so-called like a little brother, that kind of a stuff. And when my father passed away when I was 12, yeah, and it almost feels like the strongest pillar in my life just fell off, and everything starts to crumble. And then after
Yeah.
12, me entering into middle school, it almost feels like, oh, the real life, that's where it kicks in. Like people usually call me Jackson, yeah. So teachers will call me, hey Jackson, you messed up, you messed up this stuff, that kind of stuff. And it almost feels like a drastic change from a delusional framework before I was 12, and until past 12 years old, it almost feels like everything just crumbles. And that's when I started to learn about self-awareness and get self-help from myself, past 20 years old, that kind of stuff. So I like to understand from your side, your timeline, way back when you were way younger, and until now that today, you can we walk through like how is it like? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to know exactly?
Maybe probably you can run us through since you're like at a super young age, like probably 4 5, because you talk about you were starting to do dancing, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? It's really funny because I don't have a lot of memories of my life, like from earlier times. I think it's almost like my life only started when I was about 16 or 17. Like anything before that, I don't remember very well. And I don't know if that's just me, sometimes your mind like subconsciously forget things from the past that you don't want to remember. And I don't know if that's what's happening, or if I just have a really bad memory. I know I have a really bad memory, but maybe I just have a really, really, really bad long-term memory, and I just don't have a lot of memories from the past.
Yeah, no worries.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think that, like you said, there's always a turning point in life where you feel like things start to change and to click, and you go into like something different. Like for you, having to start to look at self-help and like self-awareness and things like that. I think the same happened to me when I moved here, whereas I feel like in the past 3 years, I have grown and learned about myself more than I have the rest of my life. And I think it's kind of normal when you're maybe a teenager, you don't really think about these things, or you have maybe different types of concerns and worries. Um, but if I compare maybe being from 20 till 23, or being from, like 27, 26 until now, I have grown and learned a lot more about myself. But I think these times only come through struggles. So you had to go through the struggle of, losing someone really important in your life, and that's how you grew out of that. And for me, it was moving to a different place and really struggling with, cultural changes and different like environment. And from that, I've then picked up things and tools that have helped me. So I think, yeah, that's maybe the thing in common. The theme in common here is that you need to go through some sort of struggle to then be able to dig deep and find something. How are you going to get out of this, basically?
I see. So like you shifting country to country, like what is the like biggest problems that you kind of like face? Like the most uncomfortable things that you kind of face so far? Yeah.
Um, I think the hardest thing, and this is going to sound funny, I'm from
Mm,
Switzerland and we're very well known for making watches. So
mm,
the concept of time and being on time is really important to us.
mm,
So if you're in Switzerland and you have a meeting at 10 a.m., if
mm.
you're showing up at 10, you're late. You have to show up
Oh,
10 minutes or 5 minutes before 10. And,
mm,
people are very particular in that regard in Switzerland, whereas in the Middle East, and also it's not just because it's the Middle East, but because in the UAE we have such a mix of different cultures and people from all over the world that it's really difficult, and people have a different understanding of time. So they tell you, okay, let's meet at 2 p.m., but then they show up at 3 p.m., and for them it's absolutely normal. They don't
mm,
see it as a problem. And I'm just here waiting for an hour and thinking, why is this person not coming when they tell me they would be here at 2 p.m., And
mm,
it creates like all these situations where you just get really frustrated because you don't understand why they're late, and they don't understand why being late is a problem, because in their culture or in their mindset, it is not a problem to be late. And I think that moving abroad or like changing environment makes you like open your horizon and
mm,
open your mindset to the way you see the world is not the only way to see the world, and there's probably as many ways to see it as there are people in the planet. So it's about being a bit more understanding, and I think it
mm.
doesn't mean you need to change your values or what's important to you, but you need to be just understanding and acknowledge that other people see things differently, and that's okay.
Mm, awesome, awesome. Right now, I'd like to jump into this section where I go like super interruptive, that kind of stuff, and I like to ask you like quite a bit of questions here and there. So I like to understand from your perspective, what do you think about like judgment of like other people's opinions? Yeah, people having opinions about you. How do you deal with that kind of stuff? Yeah.
um I think when I was younger, I think it mattered a lot to me what people would think and what people would say. And I think over time, I've learned to understand that I should worry about the things that I can control, and other people's judgment or opinions on me, I cannot really control. The only thing I can do is be who I am and do what I do and show up the way I want to show up. But how people perceive that or how they interpret it is kind of up to them. Like, I can't really influence that. So, me worrying about something I cannot change or cannot influence is, in my opinion, a waste of time.
I see, I see. So it's although like one has like that kind of a mindset of like saying that, oh, I don't really give I don't really care about what they think, but if what if the person is like feeling they have the mindset, but it's so hard for them to execute it, they still think about it. So what do you think that person should do? Yeah.
I think you need to, like for what I said before, I don't care about what other people think. I think that's true to a certain extent only. You
Mm,
need to realize who are the people that you value and who are the people that are important to you, and then only care about the opinion of these people and not worry about what the rest of the world thinks. For example, I
mm,
have very good friends in my life, I have close family members. If they feel a certain way toward things I do or things I say, then that's something I might want to take into consideration because I don't want to hurt their feelings. And I still understand that I cannot change, how they perceive me, but I can take that into consideration. So if you're someone who gets really affected by this, like, people get really offended about comments on social media, what people say about them, or what people like might say, I think you need to look at this person and realize, does this person's opinion matter to you or not? If you don't appreciate this person, you don't value them, they're not close to you, they don't know you, then why do you care about what they say or what they think about you?
mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you kind of like get context of what that person is like about, and then you try to understand, and then you make your judgment from there. Yeah.
You mean like for me or what other people think?
For you, yeah. When people talk about things, and then you just kind of like try to understand the person only. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think you always have to look at, who is this person to you? What's their relationship to you? What's their intention? do they say things just to say mean things? And a lot of people fuel on that. A lot of people just love to talk about other people. But
Mm,
if you know what you're doing and you know what you want in life, and then you're in your own lane, what other people say or think about you shouldn't really matter that much.
mm. That leads me to that to a thing that I really want to talk about, which is self-esteem. Like, how do you think? What do you think about the importance is for one to have self-esteem for themselves? Yeah, and how do you have it? Yeah.
I think it's one of the most important things, and probably also one of the hardest one at the same time.
Mm,
Um, I think we all struggle with that, because even though we're all going through life and we all want to do good things and be good people, but it's really difficult to sometimes have that self confidence. And that's also something I struggle with, I would say, most of the time. It's like
mm,
what I do is never good enough, it's never smart enough, it's never high enough, it's never perfect. But maybe it's not about striving for perfection, but just striving to do things and then just get better and make sure you're improving. But yeah, I think for self esteem, probably surrounding yourself with people that love you for who you are, regardless of whether you succeed or not, is really important. So in my opinion, you should really choose wisely the people you spend time with, because these are the people that will have an influence on you. And making sure that you're with people who support you no matter what you do, because they love you for who you are, is probably one of the most important thing that you can do.
mm. Can you walk us through like the people that you actually hang out with? Like, how do you choose your friends and how do you actually choose your environment? Because that is like super duper important for one to have, right? You surround what people around you with the environment that you have, then you kind of like have that positive kind of like a framework in your life. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good question.
Mm,
uh, I'm a bit of an introvert, so I don't really like crowded places, or I don't really like to hang out with a lot of people. So
mm,
the people I have in my life, usually they somehow like stumbled in my life, and then they managed to, like, it's almost like I have a bit of a shell on the outside and I don't let a lot of people in. So the people that come in is usually because they've poked often enough that I finally let them in. But I think it's about all these things. They need time. Like, you cannot meet someone and right away feel like they're your best friend. It
mm,
just doesn't work like that. And
yeah.
then, yeah, so I think it comes down to time. I don't know, what would you say? How do you find, like, who are the people in your life, and how did they get there?
Mm. Oh, you're asking me, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so how I myself am an introvert as well, and I kind of like these few days, I mean like these past few years, I've been canceling out many friends because I'm starting to go into this self-awareness mode, you know. I need a lot
Hmm.
of quiet time for myself to think about the things that I kind of need to do, and
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, including like Jay Shetty and Gary V. I know you watch Gary V, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of listen to these people and I just kind of try to get a context of what is life about and how do you actually set up yourself into a positive kind of a framework in my life. So I kind of like cancel a lot of friends recently, and I try to choose my time wisely with the people I hang out with, you know, like probably instead of meeting with my friends who are kind of toxic. I don't want to say that they are toxic, but
Yeah,
it's
I know
like
what
kind
you
of,
mean. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like bad for me. And then, you know, I just try to from daily. I don't really like fully cancel out them from my life. That's impossible. But I kind of like from instead of meeting daily basis, I meet them weekly or maybe monthly. You know, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, that's how I actually kind of roll with it. Yeah.
And the people that you have in your life and that you have close relationship to, why are they in your life? Is it because they inspire you, because they challenge you, because they help you to grow? What kind of people do you have in your life?
Mm. So currently, I wouldn't say that I have built much deep connections with other people yet. Yeah, but I because it just happens very suddenly these past few months, or I would say like, yeah, weeks. You know, so I'm still in the process of like trying to figure out stuff. You know, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. So what about your side? Like how do you actually like kind of like choose your friends? You know, what pro
Mm,
and
yeah,
what?
I think
Yeah.
so. There's two things I look for in people that I spend time with. The first thing is I want to be with people that are non-judgmental. So
Mm.
I need to feel comfortable to tell them everything. And for that, like basically building trust with people so that I can be vulnerable and I can be myself and I can tell them, the good things that happen in my life, but also the things I struggle with. And I think if you're with people that you fear their judgment or you fear their reactions or you fear what they're going to say, what they're going to think, then you can never fully be yourself. You can never be vulnerable in front of them. And therefore, they're not really friends because they're not there for you when you need them the most.
Mm.
So I think that that's one thing I look for. And I also look for people that will tell me what I need to hear, even though it's not what I want to hear.
Mm.
So,
That's
for
also.
example, sometimes you think you come across a certain way, and then people tell you, or your friends tell you, you know, how you come across or what you do or things like that. And the fact that they can tell you what's good about you, but also what's not so good about you is really important because, self awareness is key. We just spoke about it, but sometimes, being self aware is not just about what you think, but it's also about how you're perceived by other people, and it's a fine line between that and people judging you. That's where it comes back to like look at who the criticism come from and do you actually care about this person's opinion. If it's from a good friend, you probably want to listen to what they say because they're important to you, but if it's from a random person on social media, then why do you care about what they say?
Mm. Definitely. Definitely. So I like to jump into perspective, you know, because like usually as I navigate through life, you know, like I said, like very recently, then I started to do this self awareness kind of a thing, and then I will always find myself getting sidetracked to other things, to the bad stuff the bad behaviors that I used to have, you know, doing those
Mm-hmm.
bad stuff. So uh I how I actually do is like I listen to a lot of Gary Vee stuff, obviously, and he said that he pretended that since like 15 to 16 years he has this habit of like pretending that one of his closest family died, you know, and then I kind of like
Yeah.
tried it as well, and I felt like, whoa, this is crazy, you know, like tears started to flow through my eyes, you know, like I'm it's like so crazy, and it helps me to get myself back into perspective of this mode of like gratitude, that kind of a thing. Yeah. So I like to understand from your side, like how do you actually get yourself uh so, like hyper beam focus towards the things you want to do, because you kind of do like the gym stuff, and I believe it requires lots of discipline for yourself to stay focused on the gym thing. Yeah. So talk
Yeah,
to us.
I
Yeah.
think
Mm.
there's a concept that you might be familiar with if you watch a lot of Gary Vee stuff, is the macro versus micro perspective.
Mm.
So there's like there's this micro daily basis, the things you do and the daily life and the content you create or whatever you do with your life on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
And then there's the macro view, which is like the big picture of maybe what you want for your life, what you want your life to look like, and where you see yourself in the future and all these things. So I think that quite often, or I was not really fully aware of that. And I think when I started to understand that a little bit more, then it really helps to build perspective and understand that one also feeds into the other. So what you do on a day-to-day basis will lead to the macro view, but the macro takes time and patience, and that's why probably you, me, and everybody else struggle a lot with that because we're not very patient. So
Mm.
I think that, yeah, understanding the dynamics of these two things and realizing that it's the small things that you do on a micro level on a day-to-day basis that lead to the big ones was a big like way to realize, oh shit, there's actually two different perspectives here, and one needs to feeds into the other one, so they're not really working against each other but kind of like working together.
Mm. I see. I see. So you talk about patience, and what actually popped into my mind is that living of a like a humble lifestyle, that kind of thing, and recently I've been trying out to live as humbly as possible. Like I try to watch my expenses and all to keep it as low as possible. So I I like to understand from your side, like how are you managing your expenses, and how what do you think about your lifestyle? What are you trying to gonna like try to achieve in the macro level or the micro level, in terms of expenses? Yeah, where are you trying to achieve towards to? Yeah.
Um, so for like expenses, what I've done in the past maybe like 6 months is working with a budget. So basically writing down, what are my expenses, what do I need, okay, rent is this much, and then this is what I spend, and then allocating budget for certain things that needs to be maintained, so that I know, what's achievable or not. Because sometimes in the heat of the moment you think, oh, I want to buy this, I want to buy that, and a lot of people have very impulsive buying habits. So trying to minimize that as much as I can, so that I can focus on saving money for the things, I want to or I need to. So my plan is to go back into study, and I want to do an MBA. So for that, I know I need money. Therefore, I need to be able to save money. So I can't really afford, like a very luxurious apartment or like a fancy car or things like that.
Mm.
And knowing what your goal is at the macro level helps on the day-to-day basis, where you think, if you go shopping today, okay, maybe you want to buy that thing you see in the shop today, but that's not going to help you get closer to your goal on a macro level, which is for me to go and do an MBA, because I know I need to save money for that. So if you're saving money but you don't have a goal in mind, then when you're going shopping, you want to buy the things you see, because obviously, in the heat of the moment, it's easier to see the short-term reward versus the long-term one. But
Mm.
if you have a goal in mind, or if you have a plan, then you can be easily, or a little bit easy, like it's easier for you to say no to things, because you know what's your long-term plan.
Mm. Definitely. Like looking towards the long term plan instead of the short term plans. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. So, do you listen to a lot to Gary V stuff, or is there any like other people that you kind of like listen to? Yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a lot more. But to be honest, I've also tried to trim down a little bit my time on social media, because time is very valuable. So I try
Mm.
to spend a little bit less time on it, and I read a bit more books at the moment. So that's where my focus has been. But definitely Gary V's content is probably one of my favorite ones. So if I ever watch something on social media, it would be his. And I actually went to an event
Mm.
2 3 weeks ago, where
Mm.
he was speaking on stage.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really cool to see him live. I mean, the message was the same. He's very consistent in what he says.
Yeah.
So there was nothing really new in what he said, but just to be able to see him, I think his energy is very contagious. So it's really cool to see and be around that.
That's awesome, because I myself also he came to over to Singapore once, and I saw him live. Yeah, I agree. The energy is like,
How was it? Did you like it?
yeah, I like it a lot. The energy is super great, and the crowd just goes crazy. Everyone just
Yeah,
loves
exactly.
loves him. Everyone went there to
Yeah.
just to see him. Yeah. So I like to jump into because based on your vibes, I can pretty much feel that you are pretty like stable in the things that you kind of like talk about, like in terms of your mindset and stuff, and I really like that. And so I like to jump into what is the things that you think it's like, I like you to be like super thoughtful about this, like what do you think it's the thing that makes you this person that you are right now, having this mindset? Is it those like stacking moments of like uh things that happen in your life that makes you a person like this, or what? Yeah.
That's a really hard question, actually.
Mm.
um,
Yeah, because
huh. So
Gary V talks about a lot of like have you become you being a byproduct of your parents and that kind of a stuff and your environment. Yeah. So is it somewhere around there? Yeah.
yeah, so okay, first of all, you make me sound like I have my shit together and I know exactly what's going on in my life. And I think that it's not always like that, and it's not the full picture. So,
Mm.
the things I say, and even though I try to live by them, it's not always easy to, to live that way, to be like not care about other people's judgment, watch your expenses, things like that. So I have, like everybody else, moments of, relapse where I have doubts about myself, I struggle with people's opinion, but knowing what I should do and should think also helps dealing with that. So first of all, I don't think I have it all figured out, and I think no one does really. I think we're all just working towards that. um the second question, byproduct of your parents, I think, yeah, of course, parents have a huge influence on you and on your life,
Mm,
but I don't think that's the full story. For example, I do a lot of sports. My parents are not at all into sports, and they've never done really any kind of sports, and I've been active my whole life. So you could say, oh, someone's parents was playing Olympic level sports, so the kid will do the same. I think that's not always true. I think parents do have a lot of influence. For example, my parents are not really the entrepreneur type. They've had steady jobs their whole life. They haven't really changed career much. They've just done the same, and that's kind of like the old model of doing things. And I can tell that this has an influence on me because the thought of being an entrepreneur was never really present in my mind because I've never seen that firsthand with my parents. And then I can see some of my friends whose parents, have built one or multiple businesses, have moved countries and changed cultures. I can see how that has an impact on them, and how, they're maybe less risk averse because they've seen their parents do it, fail, try again, figure it out, and eventually succeed. So they have seen firsthand that it's doable. So it has an impact on them. And I think that in my case, it's very different. It doesn't mean I don't aspire to these things. It just means that I haven't really seen it, and I need to find other ways to learn these things and other people that can help with that, which might not be my parents, for example.
I see. I see. That's a like quite an insightful thought of yours. So I like to jump into like because I think I share with you the same thing, which is that we are still trying to figure out stuff, and
Yeah.
in this process, like what do you think is like the key things that you kind of think that we kind of need in order to like navigate through life, because it's like almost feels like a very confused stage, because I myself I feel like I'm super confused right now what I want to kind of like do in life, so
Yeah.
what do you think is like the key things that people like us need to take note of? Yeah.
Yeah, if you listen to Gary Vee's content, I think you know what his answer would be is, first of all, you need to be patient.
Mm,
And the second thing is you need to start doing more and not just, look at and contemplate and ponder what you could or could not do. And I think a lot of people, me included, get stuck at this stage of, what do I want to do? What should I do? Should I try this? Should I try that? And because I'm not sure that this is the thing I want to do, I never actually started because I'm worried it's not the right thing. But to figure out if it's the right thing, I need to get started and I need to try. But if you never start, you'll never know. So it's a bit like, stop thinking too much and start doing more. And I think that when you start to do more, you realize, if this is what you do, if this is what you want, or if this is not what you want. And if it's not, that's fine. You've tried, you tick the box, and then you can move on. So
mm.
I think, yeah, doing more and being patient is probably what I would say we need. And I'm also not very good at doing that because, we all think that time is going too fast and we don't have enough time. But yeah, it's a long game. I don't know, how old are you, Jack?
Oh, I'm 22 this year. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you see, and I'm 27 now, so we've
Mm.
got like so much time ahead, but yet we're trying to like, we're feeling this pressure of having to go fast and do things. And I think that's maybe an idea that was planted in our heads by I don't know who or what, but yeah, just being a bit more patient would probably help to make this process a bit more relaxed as well.
Mm. This brings me to the next point, whereby it's a very cliche thing, like people say like go do it, just go and do it and be patient, do the stuff. But what if like we lack the courage to do so? Like say for example, me trying to be kind, I think that it kind of takes like quite a bit of courage to be kind to someone, because it's like quite an underrated move, like underrated things to do to other people, like be super kind to every single one, that kind of a thing. So do you have any like things that you kind of struggle with, like in terms of like you lacking the courage to do the things that you want to do, because I feel that like a lot of things that we need to do, we just lack the courage to do so. So any like incidents like you kind of feel that you kind of like struggle with towards courage? Yeah.
I don't, yeah, that could be related to courage. I think for me is the fear of failing.
Mm.
And even though I'm getting much better with it, I still think it's a very present thing. The problem is you can never succeed if you don't learn how to fail, because it's probably guaranteed that you're going to fail at something at some point. And if you haven't learned how to deal with it, then it makes it really difficult to try new things, because you're so paralyzed by the idea of this is not going to go right that you don't do things. But if you manage to not care about other people's judgment, and to realize that you failing at something doesn't mean you're a bad person, or doesn't mean you're a failure, you just failed at something. That's being able to make that distinction. And I really struggle a lot with that, with the idea of I grew up thinking that I had to be perfect and things had to be perfect, so what I did had to be perfect, otherwise it meant I wasn't perfect.
Mm.
And once you start to realize that you are not the things you do, you are you, and the things you do are the things you do, it's a bit easier to start to shift away from that. And I've read a good book also about failure. I think the title is Black Box Thinking, and it deals a lot about understanding what failures are and how to learn from them and see them as something positive rather than something negative.
Mm.
And that, I guess, shifting that mindset also helps with that. And then, like you said, it's linked to courage. If you're afraid of failing, then you probably don't have the courage to try the things you should try.
Mm. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, we've been like talking about a lot about like what we think about like the different aspects of life, and I like to jump into the things that there is hot in your mind right now, like the things that you like kind of want to share with the world. That is something that you kind of like, anything that you like to share. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
hmm.
maybe towards gym, that kind of stuff, like it's been in your mind, that kind of thing, like training stuff and everything. Yeah,
um,
it can be very small stuff. Yeah.
yeah, honestly, what's on my mind right now is that Christmas is coming up and it's right around the corner, and and that means it means family time, and it means being
Mm.
surrounded by people that I love, because I'm actually going home for Christmas and I don't get to see my family so much anymore now that I live far away. So, I guess the thought has been to take this time to enjoy it, relax, and appreciate the people I have around me and I have in my life, and I think that's really important. So honestly, all I can think of now is vacation and going away for Christmas.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, before I end off this podcast, I like to get one last thing that the last thing that you like to kind of like share. Is there anything that you would like to share with the world that the people should do or anything? Yeah.
I don't think I'm in a place to tell people what they should or shouldn't do. I
Mm.
just think that,
Mm.
what you do with this podcast is really cool, because you basically reached out to me on Instagram because of a comment I posted under one of Gary Vee's video. And I was really surprised and kind of impressed that you were like reaching out and be like, "Hey, I have this podcast. You want to be a guest on my podcast?" And I was
Mm.
even surprised I said yes, because I'm not really that type of person. So,
Mm.
but I was like, if this guy has the courage to invite me on his podcast and reach out like this, then I should also have the courage to say yes and to show up. And I'm glad I did, because this was really good fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm super grateful to have you here on my podcast. Yeah, before we end off this podcast, is there any like last shout outs to your own channel? Where can we find you on the social media? Yeah.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's Amanda Dudko, and I'm sure once you start sharing this podcast, I'll be able to. I'll tag myself on it, or you'll tag me, and then people can
Mm.
find it. But yeah, I'm not super active on social media. But if you want to see a little bit of outdoor activities and gym stuff, then that's where you can find me.
That's awesome. Super grateful to have you here, Amanda.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate it, really.
yeah, thank you guys for listening. I'll see you guys next time. All right, that's awesome. That's awesome.